Where on earth do you go from here? Ladies and gentlemen, it is currently 11:08. Yeah, it is currently 11:08. Happy New Year, first and foremost. Happy New Year to every single one of you watching. But I literally just woke up maybe an hour and 10 minutes ago. I had to verse myself on what's going on. I had to, present myself because, that New Year celebration, it gets you looking spooky. But I woke up to the news. I got messages. I got missed calls. I got emails. I got DMs. Enzo Maresca is no longer the Chelsea head coach. Make of that what you will. But today we will be discussing how this happened, what led to it, and what's next for this football club. I was thinking about making a video on Enzo Maresca. As you guys can tell, I had not planned to make a video this early today. There's going to be a video coming out later today, depending on what happens in the Man City Sunderland game, if there's anything interesting happening there. But I did not plan on making this video, particularly because we already knew Enzo Maresca was he was a bit in trouble. We kind of knew that this was going to happen. We knew that the tension was starting to rise within the club. But I don't think anybody expected it to be this quick. Not me, at least. Now, a lot of the rumors are claiming that the three main reasons, if I'm looking this way, that's because I'm looking at my notes. The three main reasons that Enzo Maresca was deprived of his duties was his lack of accountability and his major negligence towards the medical team and the medical history of the players in the squad. The fact that the results had kind of taken a downturn, and most importantly of all, the fact that he had been talking with Manchester City around a possible exit and departure, considering Pep Guardiola is going to be leaving probably in the next year or two. Now, the first thing we need to talk about is this supposed negligence towards the medical state of the players in the club. Now, I cannot say too much about this because we don't know whether this is true. Even these sources that are coming out, it is not 100% guaranteed, neither on Maresca's side or the club's. So I don't want to talk too much about something that we don't know 100%. But if this is true, I feel as though you also have to look at the board, because when you've spent as much money as Chelsea have had in these past few seasons, you would believe that a few injuries should not be the whole club should not fall to the ground. But when you look at some of the players that have been getting injured for Chelsea, that have sustained consistent injuries, firstly, you have to start looking at the medical team. And secondly, you have to start looking at the recruitment team for not instilling Enzo Maresca and supporting him in the transfer window with a big enough squad, such that even when these injuries do happen, which they will, he has players to support him. But as I said, I don't want to talk too much about that case because we don't know whether that is for certain. But if it is certain that Enzo Maresca was kind of overarching or kind of neglecting the medical team and not listening to their instructions, that is something that cannot keep on happening. But I don't think that that's a reason you should sack a manager. Then they talk about the poor results and how in the last few games, Chelsea have not won games and Chelsea have not been able to compete. But for me, I look at that sort of criticism, and I feel as though last year you had the same inconsistencies with Chelsea. Chelsea were also challenging for those Premier League areas of the table towards the end of 2025. Sorry, the end of 2024. And then they kind of tailed away with poor results and inconsistencies, as we talked about before. But at the same time, you're seeing the same thing this season. You're seeing the big victories. You're seeing the incredible performances, just like last season that they had. You're seeing it again this year. So for you to sack a manager because of poor performances, and funnily enough, the bombshell that came out surrounding the statement, I felt like the statement said a lot. And the statement said as follows: Chelsea Football Club and head coach Enzo Maresca have parted company. During his time at the club, Enzo led the team to success in the Conference League and the FIFA Club World Cup. Those achievements will remain an important part of the club's recent history, and we thank him. With key objectives still to play for across 4 competitions, including the Champions League, Enzo and the club believe a change gives the team the best chance of getting the season back on track. Now, this is where I ask the question: what is on track for Chelsea? What is on track for Chelsea? Because you look at this Chelsea team, and I said it in my last video surrounding Chelsea, this is not a good team. Let me rephrase that. This is not an elite team. It's a good team. It's not an elite team. So I think where Chelsea are right now is exactly where they should be. Maybe they could be doing better in the Premier League. Maybe they shouldn't be losing to a Sunderland. Maybe they shouldn't be losing to a Brighton. Maybe they shouldn't be losing these sort of games. But we've said it time and time again, or at least I've said it. This is not a group of players that are experienced. This is not a group of players that give you consistency. This is not a group of players that will give you a 6, 7, 8 winning game run in a row. They're not going to do that. And in the Champions League, they're doing well. They've taken a few big scalps. They've beaten Barcelona. Of course, the Atalanta defeat was tough to take, but you take it fast forward again. They had a good result against Arsenal. They have Manchester City this weekend in a game that could revitalize their season. Would anybody be surprised if Enzo Maresca went to the Etihad and got a result against Pep Guardiola? I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever. So for me, the whole feeling around it kind of feels as though there's something behind this. There's something a bit more deep rooted. Perhaps it's not just a sporting thing, because I don't think you sack a manager because of, what has it been, six games or 8 games. Yes, I'm not gonna say 7. I'm tired of this. It's a new year, please. The fact you're gonna sack a manager who, because he's only had 1 Premier League win in 7 games, but this is also a manager who's in the semifinals of the Carabao Cup against an Arsenal side that he's shown he can go toe to toe with. They're probably gonna qualify for the next round of the Champions League, and the whole statement surrounding, with key objectives still to play for, including qualification for Champions League football. They're saying that as though Chelsea are like 12th in the league and Champions League football is in a perilous position. Chelsea are going to qualify for the Champions League, at least if Enzo Maresca had stayed. I don't know what's going to happen now. I don't know who they're going to bring in. I don't know how the club's going to go. But Chelsea are going to qualify for Champions League. If Enzo Maresca had stayed, they will comfortably qualify. Liverpool are at all sorts. They're doing well right now, but things aren't perfect over there in Merseyside. Manchester United are absolutely god-awful. They are terrible. Manchester, and then, of course, Aston Villa, they're in a good moment right now, but would anybody be surprised if Aston Villa still finished below Chelsea this season? I would not be surprised. So for me, this whole results narrative they're trying to run, I feel like it's a gas. I feel like it's just gas. I feel like it's just smoke to block out what is really happening. And I think what's really happening, you need to look back at the interview that Enzo Maresca gave a few weeks ago to see the things that started to really create a bit of tension. And of course, that interview that he had after the Everton game included a few striking quotes where they asked him about the game, what they thought. Of course, Chelsea won 2-0 against an Everton team that at that point I think was about 2 or 3 points behind them in the league. So it was a big game against David Moyes' side. They asked him about Cole Palmer. They asked him about his introduction back into the team after a few injuries. They asked about the victory and how he feels as though Chelsea can build on this. And he, of course, defended the players, said the players have been doing well, especially in this Christmas period. Things you would expect him to do. Then, later on, they asked him, how pleased are you with Malo Gusto and Exact? And of course, again, he talked about the effort of the players, how many times both him and Malo Gusto in question and Reece James have been able to fill in both in midfield as well as at fullback. And he said he wants to, and this is a direct quote, "This is the reason why I praise the players, because with so many problems, they are doing very well after a complicated week. Since I joined the club, these last 48 hours have been the worst 48 hours since I joined the club because so many people didn't support us." Of course, the media would ask, what do you mean by not having support? He said, worst 2 days since I joined the club because people didn't support me and the team. Which people? People in general. In general. Do you mean the fans or the media? I love the fans and we are very happy with the fans. So when you say stuff like that, it already drives tension within the club. And this is a board that we've seen in recent times have a huge ego. And this is why I continue to say, what are Chelsea Football Club? What is the identity of Chelsea? Because people act as though I have an agenda against Chelsea or I just automatically don't like Chelsea. People need to understand it. A few years ago, I was a huge admirer of what Chelsea were doing. With a manager like Thomas Tuchel, who was charismatic, had a flexible way of playing, won them the Champions League, it felt like Chelsea were moving in the right direction. Of course, they went on to sign Lukaku and tried to push from the Premier League, and that didn't work. But when Bluko came in, they gave him peanuts to work with. They bought him an old Kalidou Koulibaly. They bought him a Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang that really wasn't going to do anything for him. And then, literally a few days after giving him that, they sacked him. They sacked the manager who had won them the Champions League and had been able to compete in the biggest tournament at the highest level for about 2 to 3 years at that point. So for me, from that moment, I already started to distance myself from Chelsea because I felt you don't even support a manager who has that much credit in the bank. So who are you going to support? And then, of course, they hired Graham Potter. He didn't turn out well. They hired Mauricio Pochettino, who I thought was starting to build something at Chelsea, even though he was already fighting a losing battle being a former Spurs manager. Cole Palmer showed his best level under Mauricio Pochettino. And what did Chelsea do? They sacked him again. They sacked him just when he felt like he was starting to build. And then they go and hire an Enzo Maresca. And they convinced themselves as though Enzo Maresca was going to be this improvement on Mauricio Pochettino. They finished one position higher than the position they finished the season prior, or even probably the same position. Of course, they won the FIFA Club World Cup, they won the Conference League, but the Conference League was a tap-in. And the FIFA Club World Cup, I've stated my opinions on that tournament on this channel already. You guys know how I feel. I don't care about that competition. So the difference is not even that much, that you're not even allowing people to build a project. And when you look at the recruitment that they have, how are you going to have any success if you don't give a manager an opportunity to build with these players, to build a rapport, to build a system, to build a hierarchy, to build leaders in the squad? Chelsea don't have leaders in this team. They don't have leaders. You look at a bunch of the players they signed. Is it crazy to think they're going to be gone in a few seasons? Joao Pedro, Alejandro Garnacho, Jamie Gittins, Liam Delap. I would not be surprised if all of them are gone in the next 2 years. I would not be surprised whatsoever. And I feel like Enzo Maresca is fed up with that. And you saw that in his reported attempts to try and speak to the Manchester City board. If he's looking at Pep Guardiola and he sees a manager that's probably going to leave in a few months, why don't I put my leg in the basket? Why don't I put my name in the lottery? Of course, it's not the professional thing to do. And I'm not saying that Enzo Maresca was right to do that. But I feel as though the board as well, they have not supported this man. And he said it clearly. They are not supporting me. This is a manager who asked for a center back in the summer. What did they give him? They gave him Liam Delap, Joao Pedro, Alejandro Garnacho. They sold Noni Madueke and they sold Nicholas Jackson. I'm not saying Nicholas Jackson and Noni Madueke are world beaters. I'm not saying that whatsoever. They are probably the same level as the players they bought, probably even a little bit worse. But those are not players that's going to take you to the next level. Enzo Maresca won the FIFA Club World Cup and the Conference League. No matter what you think about those trophies, they are 2 trophies. Now you would believe we would kick on. We would go out in the transfer window, make a statement, and let people know we are going to challenge on all fronts. And they didn't do that for him. And I think all of this just brings into question a bigger narrative surrounding Chelsea and surrounding this ownership. And we made a video talking about whether this ownership will foster an environment that promotes winning at Chelsea. I don't think it will. I don't think it ever will. And I've told my friend this before, my Chelsea friend. I don't think with this ownership you will ever win anything major, at least not in the near future. Because this is an ownership that is not encouraging your players or encouraging an atmosphere or encouraging a team morale that fosters success. Of course, as I said, they'd won the Conference League, they'd won the FIFA Club World Cup. But guys, let's be honest here. Come on, let's be candid. We can be candid here. Those are not trophies that Chelsea fans are going to pride themselves on in 5 to 10, 15, 20 years. They're not. And I think this sacking or departure, or I don't even know the word to use, parting of ways from both parties, I think this is something that really needs to prong the question surrounding Blue Co. And Chelsea fans as a whole, they need to come together and really evaluate what it is they want to see from their football club. Do they want a return back to the glory days, or at least the days of competing at the highest level of world football? Or are you content with just being a club that recycles players, finishes 4th to 3rd every season, and challenges from time to time? Challenges for a Champions League, challenges for a Premier League title for about 4 months, and then kind of teeter away because you don't have the squad depth or the actual player quality to do so. So that's for Chelsea fans to decide. And it's going to be interesting to see how they approach the second half of the season. Being the new year, being a new part of the season, who are they going to bring in? Of course, names that are being mentioned: Liam Senior, Oliver Glasner, Cesc Fabregas. These are big names. These are young, bright, talented coaches across Europe. Glasner is starting to look like things are going stale at Crystal Palace. Cesc Fabregas, of course, is doing a great job at Como. Liam Senior doing a great job at Blue Co's other club, Strasbourg. But I look at all these names, and again, I ask the question, what is it that Chelsea want to be? Are you trying to go back to those glory days? Are you trying to be that force to be reckoned with across Europe? Is that the goal? Or are you just a club that is going to prioritize finances, prioritize profit, prioritize the recycling of players, and ultimately prioritize sustainability? That is the question I have. Because I look at a coach like Liam Senior. Of course, very, very young and talented coach. It looks like he's building a lot of rapport in the European game. But again, if I'm Liam Senior, I am keeping as far away from this job as possible. Because this is a board that doesn't like a coach that gets too in and above themselves. They don't like a coach who makes too much noise. They don't like a coach who wants to run things by himself because he believes that the board themselves don't know anything about football, which they do not. They don't want a coach who comes in. They don't want a coach who tries to adopt his own philosophy around the club. They don't want a coach who comes in and asks for his own players because they're not going to give you that. They're not going to give you that. They're going to give you players from Botswana and players from Nepal and players from Bora Bora. They're not going to give you the elite of the elite, even though Chelsea have the resources to do that. And then you hear this whole narrative. Like, I speak to some of my Chelsea friends and they say, oh, we don't want to spend too much money. We don't want to spend high on wages. What is the difference between paying a 50 million per year wage or even a 30 million per year wage to one player and maybe spending, I don't know, 50 million, 60 million on them, and going out and spending 100, 250 million on 5 average players? What is the difference? And then they'll talk about amortization, spreading the cost. They'll talk about, oh, we can, it's a sunk cost. Who cares about all these economic terms? I want to win. I want to win. I don't care about these finance. It's not my pocket. I'm trying to look for my wallet. It's not my pocket. Who cares? Who cares? Just win. Please. If I'm a Chelsea fan, that's what I'm looking. I'm looking at my screen, I'm looking at my TV, and I'm screaming, please, just win. Just win, just compete, just be a serious team. Who cares whether we flipped Ugo Chukwu for 20 million? I don't care. It is not my finances. It is not my finances. So why do I care? I don't know what Chelsea do from here. Now, they could go on and get another coach, Glasner, Rosinia. These are all top coaches, says Fabregas. Even though I don't think Fabregas will leave halfway through what he's doing with Como. I don't think Rosinia will leave If Rosinia leaves halfway through with what he's doing at Strasbourg fans need to riot. Because this whole hierarchy that they've adopted, they need to riot. You have a coach who nobody else wanted, is doing a lot of great things. You're doing really well in League 1. You're competing to qualify for European competitions, and then it gets completely snatched from you because Bluco don't know how to run Chelsea properly. You have to riot. The whole of France must hear about this. Everyone has to be on the streets rioting. They cannot allow this. But as for Chelsea, honestly, as I said, if I'm a Chelsea fan, my head is gone. First day of the new year, I'm waking up. I'm supposed to be eating food. I'm supposed to be writing down my goals for the year. And this is the news I wake up to. My head would be gone. But last quick one on Enzo Maresca. I think he's probably ecstatic with what's going on. I think he probably leaves this job and he says, hey, Guardiola, I see you. Keep that seat warm for me. But of course, let me know what you guys think about the whole situation. Do you think Enzo Maresca was rightfully sacked? I don't think, generally, if anybody in my comment section, you know what? Let's leave it up for interpretation. If you believe that Enzo Maresca was rightfully sacked, let me know. If you believe he was wrongfully sacked, let me know, and the reason why down in the comment section down below. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Happy New Year, and take care of yourselves.